you caught him. Oh,
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. This is Wake in the North book club for September 29th, 2022. This evening we will be reading the Völundarkviða, which is 40 stanzas, and I apologize for my poor diction this evening. That being said, I will turn it over and we'll get this ball rolling.
Völundarkviða fits somewhat uncertainly between the poems about the gods and the poems about the heroes. It tells of the famously cunning smith Volund, known in England as Wayland, in Germany as Valant, his marriage to a Valkyrie, his mauling, imprisonment, and enslavement by King Nithuth, and finally his revenge on that king, which takes the form of murdering his sons and raping his daughter. Thank you. Essaying his daughter Bothvild before Volund escapes on a flying machine he has constructed for himself. Volund is the only significant speaking character in a classical Old Norse text who is identified as an elf. The prose introduction is original to the manuscript. Nithuth was the name of a king in Sweden. He had 2 sons and a daughter named Bothvild. There were 3 brothers, sons of King Finni. One was named Slagfinn, the other Egil, the third Volund. They skied and hunted, and when they came to Ulfdalir, they made themselves houses there. There is a lake called Ulfsea there. Early in the morning, they found 3 women at the lake shore who were spinning thread. There were swan skins near them, since the women were Valkyries. 2 of them were daughters of King Hlothfair, and these were Hlathguth the Swan White and Hervor the Wise. The third was Olrin, daughter of Kjar, King of France. The men took these 3 women home with them. Egil married Olrin, Slagfinn took Hlathguth, and Volund took Hervor. They lived like this for 7 winters. But then the women left them in order to visit battlefields and never came home again. Egil and Slagfinn skied away to search for their wives, but Volund stayed home in Ulfdalir. He was, as far as men know, the most capable with his hands of all the people in the old sagas. King Nithuth had him seized, and this poem is about that.
Women flew from the south through Mirkwood, those young Valkyries, who chose men's fates. These southern ladies paused to rest on a lake shore. They spun and weaved precious threads. Egil took one for his wife. He took that beauty in his embrace. Slagfinn took Hlathguth, clad in swan feathers, and the third, their sister, took Volum's handsome neck in her embrace. Afterwards, they stayed for 7 winters, but in the 8th, they became anxious, and in the 9th, they had to depart. Those ladies yearned for Mirkwood, those Valkyries were eager to judge wars. The sharp-eyed archer Egil and his brother Slagfinn came home from hunting and found their homes empty. They went in and out and looked all around, but finally Egil skied east to look for Olrin, and Slagfinn skied south to look for Hlathguth. But Volund sat alone in Ulfdalir. He worked gold and colorful jewels. He assembled rings and strung them on ropes. In this way he waited to see whether his lady would return. Nithuth learned this, the lord of Njari. He learned that Volund was alone in his valley. He sent men in the night wearing well-made armor. Their shields glimmered in the light of the waning moon. They dismounted at Volund's doorstep. They went inside his vast home. They saw Volund's golden rings, 700 altogether, strung on a rope. They took them in hand, then put them back, but stole a single one before they stepped out. Then the keen-eyed archer Volund came home. He had traveled a long way that day. He started to roast the meat of a brown bear. The kindling burned. The dry wood burned. The wind-dried logs burned, and it warmed Voland. Voland the elf sat on the bearskin and counted his rings, but noticed one missing. He thought it must be Hervor, his wife. He thought she'd come back and taken the ring. We have anyone willing to read the next section?
I will.
Okay.
He sat waiting for her so long he fell asleep, and when he awoke, he was bound in chains. He saw the heavy chains restraining his hands and on his feet. There were also solid locks. He called out, "Who are the kings who have put chains on me? Who has tied me up?" Nyathith, Lord of Nyari, gave him an answer. "Voland, you crafty elf, where did you find our treasures? In your valley?" Voland said, "It was hardly a hoard such as Sigurd's gold. My home was not near the mountains of the Rhine. I remember that we used to have yet more when we were a happy family at home in Ulfdalir. Insert correct noun here. Lasketh and Hervor were daughters of Lothvir. Olran, Kjar's daughter, was a cunning sorceress. Nyasa's queen came in to the magnificent hall. She stood proudly on the floor and spoke. "This man who came in from the woods will not be happy." King Nyathas gave his daughter the gold ring that he had taken from Voland. He himself carried Voland's sword, and the queen said, "Voland shows his teeth every time he sees that sword, or when Bothfield wears that ring in his presence. His eyes are as cruel as the glistening snakes. Cut his sinews, rob his strength, and put him away in Sevarstuff." Insert correct noun here. So Voland's hamstrings were cut, and he was placed on a small island next to the land, which was called Sevarstuff. There he made all kinds of treasures for the king, and no one dared to come to the island except the king himself. Voland said, "My sword shines on Nyath's belt, the sword I sharpened, the sword I alone, the greatest smith, could make, the sword I hardened with my unmatched skill. Now that glistening sword is always far from my sight, since Nyathas will not bring that treasure to my workshop. His daughter, Bothfield, also wears the treasure. Never meant for her, my bride's golden ring." Voland worked, never sleeping, constantly swinging his hammer. He thought of a daring plot to foil Nyathas. Then Nyathas' two young sons, the two boys, came to see Voland's treasures on the island of Sevarstuff. They came to the treasure chest. They asked for the keys. They realized Voland's skill when they peered inside. The boys saw many ornaments, all of them made of gold and gems.
I'll go next. Voland said, "Come back alone, just you two, the day after tomorrow. I will give all this gold to you if you do. Don't tell the ladies, don't tell the men, don't tell anyone at all that you're meeting with me." Early on the appointed day, one boy said to the other, "Let's go see the rings." So the two boys came and asked for the keys. They realized Voland's skill when they peered inside. He cut off the heads of those young boys. He hid their bodies under his bellows. But he took their skulls and scalped them, set them with silver, and sent them as cups to Nithoth. And from the eyes of those young boys he made jewels for their mother, Nithoth's wife. And Voland made ornaments from the teeth of her own two brothers for Bothfield, Nithoth's daughter. Bothfield praised a ring Voland had made. She told him it was broken, "And I don't dare to tell it," she said, "to anyone but you." Bolin said, I'll repair it so that your father on his throne will look at it. And to him and to your mother, it will look even better, and you'll think so too when you wear it. He gave her beer. He could easily outdrink her, and finally she sat in his chair and she slept. Bolin said, Now I have avenged the wrongs done to me, all except one of the most wicked. I have done well. I wish I were on my feet, the ones cut from me by the wicked men of Nithoth. But then, laughing, Volin launched himself in the air. Bothfield wept as she left the island. She wept for her lover's departure and her father's anger. Volin saw where Nithoth's queen stood outside and went into the hall. Volin perched atop the wall and said, Are you awake, Nithoth, Lord of Nyari? Nithoth said, I am awake. I have no joy. I barely sleep since my son's death. Your cold actions have chilled me. Now I wish I had never dealt with Volund.
Tell me, Volund, you crafty elf, what kind of fate did my sons meet? Volund said, First, you must swear many oaths. Swear by a ship's board, by a shield's edge, by a horse's withers, by a sword's blade, that you will not harm my lover, nor cause her death, even if my new bride is a woman of your kin, even if she bears my child inside your own hall. Then go to the workshop that you forced me into. There you'll find bags full of blood. I cut your boys' heads off and left their bodies beneath the bellows. And after I scalped them, I took their bare skulls and decorated them with silver before I sent them to you. And after I took their eyes out, I turned them into jewels for your crafty queen. I made jewels from the teeth of those two boys and sent them to your daughter Bothfield. Now Bothfield walks about pregnant, yes, the only daughter of the two of you. The king said, You could say nothing more awful to me. I would never torture you worse. There is no man so tall that he could reach you up there, nor so good a shot that he could shoot you down. There will you hang among the clouds, Volund. Laughing, Volund flew up and away and left the joyless Nithoth sitting below. Nithoth said, Get up, Thakreth, my good servant. Go to my pretty daughter Bothfield. Tell her to come to me in fine dress. Come talk to her father. The king then said to her, Is it true, Bothfield, what Volund said, that you and he lay together? She said, It is true, father. Everything he said to you is true. Volund and I lay together on his island. A while. We never should have. I couldn't fight him, father. I couldn't withstand him, father. That ends a somewhat dark section of the Poetic Edda, in my opinion.
At least somewhat.
At least it wasn't graphic.
That's
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of creative editing on Crawford's part. Maybe. I don't know. It could be. Which is good.
It's possible, but it's also appreciated. I hadn't had a chance to read this yet.
Yeah.
We're going into tonight, and the introduction had me nervous.
Yeah, I hadn't read it. That's why when I saw it, I just was, that's why I paused, because I was like, do I address that?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here like, okay, do I? And unfortunately, this is where, Sprinkle, we miss you. Would have probably had a better thought on it. My initial thought was, okay, maybe put a disclaimer at the beginning and say, hey, potential trigger warning, be careful with this. But
yeah,
unfortunately, I think the trigger was more in the introduction than in the actual stanzas. Because the introduction calls it out as assault, but again, the way it's worded at that very end certainly insinuates it, but it could
but without the introduction.
Go ahead.
I said, but without the introduction calling it out as such, it could be interpreted a different way.
Right. If they had never said that, it would have been okay. You could read into it that way, or you could say, well, he was just so charming and eloquent, I was powerless to resist. But
Kind of like that Christmas song that everybody was up in arms about, where it's like, well, no, that's just the language of the day.
right. Either way, something.
We may. Maybe it would be good to put a trigger warning at the front of it.
Something we'll have to mention before it gets posted anywhere, just to be safe.
I would. Just.
Unfortunately, it's not a
Question.
whole lot.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't see a whole lot redeeming in Voland here.
Yeah, me neither.
PJB, sorry to hear you're having a headache. Have a good night, and we will catch you next time. Is there anyone else? I think we've only got one left in chat with Chris here, but the three of us here and Chris, any other questions, comments, thoughts on this?
I mean, I think the only potentially redeeming quality for Voland is the fact that, when his wife went off, he's like, I'm not going to chase after her. I'm going to let her come home to me. Whereas his brothers chase after theirs. That's maybe the only redeeming quality that I can find. He trusted her to come back. And then was trapped and taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that
it's one of those.
But I am saying that the anger was not misplaced.
The
Perhaps.
anger was justified. The anger was justified. The actions were not.
Yes.
A little too far, well, more than a little too far, but it's one of those things. If you're angry at somebody, deal with that person, not
the people around them. But I mean, I do think that the one redeeming quality is, hey, I'm just gonna wait for my wife to come back. I don't need to chase her, which is nice, I think.
Yeah, it's
different.
Random squirrel brain thought of it. Well, at least Loki's not the only one that got punished with his kids. that was just squirrel brain. That made no sense.
no, but it does seem to be a running
theme.
Yes.
Fortunately, this evening we don't have Sprinkle or Matt with us to get us ready for next time. I am assuming that we are probably going to be moving into the Alvismal, which looks like it's only 35 stanzas. So, assuming that, actually, I don't know if, Sprinkle and Matt usually handle the scheduling. So I don't know if it's going to be next week or if they're going to do a watch party first. Everything's.
Yeah, I think a watch party's coming up because they were aiming for once a month.
I think they were doing one once a month. I think it was supposed to be the first week of the month, which would make it next week.
Right. I think a watch party's coming up.
And if that is, what are we on? Is it episode 3?
Yes.
So that may be it will be coming up. Whether or not it's next week, we'll wait and hear from Sprinkler Matt a little later on. But with that, we will say good evening to Craig and send them on their way. Once
bye, Craig.
Remember how to. I think it's just stop if I remember. Yep. Okay, so good night, Craig, and. Yeah.